Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. Well, it's pretty much all the calls all the time with this episode. Big contribution from Barney, then Jason of Nerds RPG, Variety Cast, a first time caller, the Pink Phantom, and last but not least, we're going to hear from Rich Fraser of Cockatrice Nuggets. So enjoy the episode. Like I say, I haven't got too much to say, but I have got a sprinkling of updates and where I'm at with my thinking in between calls. So there you go. It's the usual fare, really, from me.
But now the Hiveworlds, and my son is playing a bit of guitar in between eating his breakfast in the other room now. The Hiveworlds. A couple of things, including your podcast, remind me that I need to record a follow-up to my Games Workshop early days of Necromunda and the connections with 2000 AD episode that's ages old now. So I promised myself that I'd do a follow-up to that, and I haven't. So I need to get on to that. Really interesting to hear everyone chiming in on that in the last episode. To start by tacking on a really obvious thing, which you've talked about and I've talked about before, that, and others, of course, that fear, that danger of being high up, that comes into these super structures, these mega cities being so high, and think of how many films have their climax up on the top of some very, very tall building, and it's kind of down to who's gonna get who over the edge splat, and of course that's a very literal thing, but factors into role-playing games as we've talked about before. But these deeper things, dynamics, whatever elements, to do with class, mapped onto this lower and upper, are really, really interesting. I think Games Workshop do an interesting thing with the Hiveworlds, in that they're kind of parochial, they're almost rural, because they're on these far-flung planets and people just kind of stay there, most of them anyway, and at the same time it's all futuristic and all of that. So there's this kind of collapsing or mashing together of lots of concepts that we have, like near and far, rich and poor, advanced, basic, technology, absence of technology, raw materials, recycling, all of those kinds of things, they all get mashed in together. And
I'm cutting in here, interrupting Barney, because he's hit the nail on the head. A lot of the allure in this setting for me is the way that things are mashed up together. The low tech, the high tech, the upper class, the lower class, and all the things that Barney mentioned makes it really inspiring to me, and I think it would make a great setting for an RPG. I know I'm not alone in that, and I'll talk a bit more about that after we've heard the rest of what Barney's got to say. Go on, Barney, carry on, mate. Sorry for interrupting.
Other thing that has made me want to actually get on with doing that episode of mine is the recent crowdfunding that Soul Muppet did for a game called Gangs of Titan City, which is a role-playing game which basically takes place in a one of on a Hiveworld in one of these cities. God, I've forgotten what they're called. And of course, I know that there's the official GW stuff. So, but Gangs of Titan City, I guess, is going to be on the more minimalist side of rules. I think it's all D6. And I think what was getting my mind going, I think they're trying to present something that goes back to some of the earliest ideas about Necromunda. I think that's what they're going for, rather than the more recent iterations of it. And that, I think, is interesting and makes it not just a case of filing off the serial numbers. But it is a curious thing, I feel, for Soul Muppet to be creating something that's so obviously based on Necromunda, and they've been careful, I would say, not to tread on any toes, but they even have, like Carl talks about in his message, the cross section of the city, and you are creating gangs. I'm interested if the RPG can be played skirmish-like, if that works in some way, or if they're taking that into consideration. And I think that links into what you were saying about maze rats, in a way, that this material gets recycled and we don't always notice it. And I think that's interesting. I guess I don't necessarily know where I stand on it all, in terms of what happens if you kind of go over that line, and what you're doing becomes very clearly not just influenced by something, but is a kind of replica, if you like, a remake of something. I'm not sure what I think about that, but fine, let's do it.
A big thanks to Barney of Loco Ludus. Then I am still enamoured with this idea of the high rise and hive worlds, Necromunda, all that goodness that Barney mentions. Not so enamoured with Soul Muppet, however. Best Left Buried was I nearly picked it up, and I was glad I didn't. I was put off with the production of that one. It might just be a matter of them needing to get a little bit more experience under their belt. They're a young company, from what I can make out. They're doing a lot of different things. I don't know. I've just not been blown away, and this latest offering seems a little bit derivative, and I've had a look at some of their kind of promotional material, and I don't mean to be mean, but it just doesn't. It's just not grabbing me. I'm happy to stick with what I've got. In fact, I've been giving it quite a little bit of thought today, looking at bringing the timeline right forward to a time perhaps when the hives have totally been forgotten. The hive worlds and the Imperium are no more, and I've got some ideas for that. I've been taking some notes, and I'll keep you posted with regard to progress on that front.
Hey Colin, the Pink Phantom here. I want to say I agree with you 100% about not referring to the knowledge that our distant ancestors had as primitive technology. I mean, I guess we could use Stone Age technology for those really far back, and they did some amazing things in stone, both on the small scale with the small tools that they used as knives and specialized tools, and also, building monoliths. I mean, they built with stone, and they built with stone to last. So I think calling it primitive technology is just kind of giving them the old shove aside. And even though Stone Age kind of has some of that connotation, I think it at least gives a better indication of what they were actually doing back then, just working with stone like the experts they were.
So, awesome stuff. First time caller, Pink Phantom. I've heard him around on Yankosphere, calling into a few shows, and he's called into Spike Pit. So I feel privileged to hear what he's got to say. And yes, indeed, we cannot play down the skill of these early craftsmen. I actually know a guy out in East Anglia. He has been on TV numerous times. His dad is a leading, I think his dad might have actually passed now. It's been years since I caught up with him. And they do flint napping. He kind of dresses up as a Neolithic man. They go to various shows, or they used to. And I spent a day making some flint tools, flint napping, and it is hard. It is hard, and you can't just get any old rock. It's they're very selective about the material they use. It has to be very sound. It can't have it can't be fractured. It's a fascinating subject, and one that I can't do any sort of justice to in a discussion on my podcast. Deceptively simple, but it is hard work and really, really skilled. You need loads of patience, and you need a good deal of strength in your hands, I can tell you that. And whilst I can't really do the subject of flint napping much justice on this podcast, it is super relevant to me because of this theme that Pink Phantom mentions. It's this early technology again, and I've got this idea to tie it in with these hive worlds. So yeah, interesting stuff, and thanks for the call.
Hey Colin, Jason here. I'm way behind on my podcast. Thank you for the ones you've re-released recently. I just finished episode 473, and great episode. You know, my Kindle Fire, it actually died. It turned off, and it won't turn back on no matter what I do. And even after finding all the tips on the internet and all, I can't get it turned back on. So maybe I'll just replace it with a Paperwhite to just read books and not have any of the other functions on it. So I'll consider doing that. Although I do like reading the texture of a physical book and the weight of the physical book when it falls on my face when I fall asleep at night while I'm reading. But yeah, maybe I will pick up a Paperwhite. So maybe you've got a little something going there. Anyhow, great episode, great thoughts. Keep up the great work, and I will talk to you soon. Oh, I meant to also say congrats on your weight loss. That exercise program is awesome. That's definitely something I keep saying I want to do that I really need to do. I need to start taking care of my health if I'm going to be around much longer. And if I'm going to get rid of the pile of junk I have in my house and clutter, I'm going to have to live long enough to do it. So you got to get healthy. Anyhow, great job. Hang in there. Thanks for being inspirational. I really appreciate it.
So my old buddy Jason of Nerds RPG Variety Cast, they're struggling under the weight of episodes. I mean, he, as far as I can make out, he listens to everybody, he calls into everybody, and I'm not surprised that at times he gets behind with his listening. But, don't feel obliged to listen to all mine, Jason. I would hate for you to I hate to think if you're struggling there, but it is really encouraging, and this has come up a couple of times recently that folks have been kind enough to mention that they've found the show inspirational, and really that I'm so pleased to hear that, because that's what I try to do. I don't really want to be controversial. I don't really want to moan and whinge, and I just want to try and throw a few ideas out there, and it's really great to know that maybe a few people find something in that sparks off their own imagination and encourages them to get up and do something a little bit different or make a few changes. Yeah, I don't know. All I would say is, cheers, Jason. Thanks for the vote of confidence and the encouragement. And talking of health, got a call in from another old buddy of mine. He's been calling in a bit more recently, which is great news. It's Rich Fraser of Cockatree Snuggers.
Hey Colin, activity tracker, huh? I got something to say about those too. I bought a lot of cheap little $25 watches that will track my steps, cycling, and stuff like that. And they're all right. They don't do what I want them to do. I'm trying to replace a Pebble Time, which I love, and I can't find something better for it. So you might want to look into those. Also, I use an Android. I don't know if you use an iPhone, but my Android has a Fit app that will keep track of things for me. I think it might even detect if I'm walking or cycling. I don't know. I don't do anything but walk, so I couldn't tell you there. Take care.
So in closing, thanks for the call in, Rich, and I have indeed got an Android. I will look into that. Since talking about this on the podcast previously, I've kind of gone away from the idea of another gadget. I've been having a little bit of a sort out around the house this weekend again, and I just seem to acquire that stuff, and I get bogged down with it all a little bit. If I could use my phone as you suggest, that may be a totally workable suggestion. Oh yeah, and I meant to say, getting together with the Purple Worm Collective, myself, John and Pete, we're recording and streaming Wednesday. That'll be around, I would say, between 7 and 7:30 UK time, and that's Wednesday. Check it out on Twitch, and I believe it goes out later on YouTube, and will also be released as a podcast episode. And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks to my patrons, the Pit Crew over on Spike Pit Patreon, and to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.